welcome everyone to this hybrid meeting of the Planning Committee. This planning meeting is being broadcast live over the internet and will be available to view online now and in the future. We welcome the use of the Welsh language at meetings. I have had no request for people to speak Welsh today, so this meeting will be conducted in English only. Those attending in the chamber, please be aware that we are all on camera and you may be visible on screen when people around you are speaking. And please remember to speak clearly into your microphones. Committee members participating remotely, can you please refrain from using the chat function and instead use the raised hand icon to indicate when you want to speak. And please remember to keep your microphone muted when you are not talking. May I remind members that as per statutory guidance made under Section 4 of the Local Government Wales Measure 2011 and our formally adopted hybrid meeting policy, any member attending a meeting remotely must be able to be seen and heard by the members and officers who are attending the meeting, as well as by members of the public viewing the meeting. So can I ask that you all please use your cameras for the duration of the meeting? Thank you. Moving on to the agenda. Agenda item 1, attendance and apologies. Rachel, do we have any apologies?
None that I'm aware of, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you, Rachel. Agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Niall, could you please ask members in alphabetical order to state whether they have any interest to declare?
Of course. So we'll start with Councillor Ashley.
Yes, I'm in Cumbrian Community Council area.
Okay. Councillor Evans.
None that I'm aware of, thanks.
Councillor Gordon.
Nothing from me.
Councillor Haller.
Nothing from me.
Councillor Gaynor James.
None from me.
Councillor John James.
Nothing from me.
Councillor Mark Jones.
Nothing that I'm aware of.
Yourself, Chair.
Nothing to declare.
And finally, Councillor Slade.
Yes, I should declare a personal interest in agenda item 4 as I'm the ward member.
Right. Thank you, Niall. Right, we'll move on to the next item 3. Minutes of the Planning Committee from the 26th of March 2025. Members, could you possibly state whether you have anything to raise in relation to the minutes? If not, I will take them as approved. Can't see any hands going up, so the minutes are approved. Thank you. Right, agenda item 4. Planning application 24P0120DNS. Proposed ground-mounted photovoltaic solar farm and energy storage facility, together with associated equipment, infrastructure and ancillary works at land at Pentre Bach. Can I ask Mr. Justin Jones, Principal Planner, to present the report, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Good morning, Committee.
Good morning.
Hopefully members can see the PowerPoint presentation.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Evans. Okay, before I go into the presentation, Chair, if we just do a background to why this application is coming to committee. As members will know, this is a development of national significance. We are not the deciding body. That is PEDU, which is an appointed Welsh Government organisation. We are advised to make a local impact report Members have seen these before in other applications that we've had for the wind farms. As members will note, within the committee report, the local impact report has to be with PEDU by the 12th of May, which doesn't coincide with committees. So this application is reported for information only. It isn't completed as yet. We're still currently out to consultation with consultees. The full report will be available for members to view post at the next planning committee, but that will be after the 12th of May, when we would have submitted the local impact report. One other point for members to note is that you will see on the stage chart that was in the committee report, the stage 4, which is the decision-making process. Because the energy megawatts is below 30, the Welsh ministers have decided that those decisions will be delegated to the inspector, so the Welsh minister will not be making the decision on this. It will be the inspector. Thank you, Chair. So if we go to the application site itself, it's approximately 45 hectares in area, and I've circled it in red on the screen. The site is south of Cwmbran and 700 metres north of Betws, and it comprises grazing pasture, hay meadows, bounded by mature hedgerows, and ditches, broadleaf woodlands, and mature trees. And we can see that better on the aerial photograph. So here's some aerials. As you can see, it's undulating grassland, and as members will be aware, this area forms part of the special landscape area of the southern lowlands. Obviously, you can see the settlement of Cwmbran. So these are some photos. So these are taken from Pentrell Lane. The application site is just to the other side of this hedgerow, or tree line, should I say. And again, that's the same there. Again, this is looking from Cwmbran Clwyfar, so just over the brow of this hill is where the solar farm would be, is proposed to be. We look at the development itself. It comprises the 10 battery units, which are sited around here. That's what they look like. It's not the best picture, I apologise, Chair. There is a substation, again, which is also located up in the top right-hand corner. So then we have the rows of the solar panels across the site. Some key points for members to note. The construction compound is located here. This is Pentrell Farm. Here's the access, which is on Pentrell Lane. What you can see, these yellow lines that I'm highlighting are the public rights of way. Some of them will be diverted, and you can see a diversion that is proposed through here. Around each batch of solar panels will be enclosed by approximately a 2.5 metre fence. Connection to the grid will be from the overhead lines. So what we have here, Chair, is additional landscaping that's proposed. So there's reinforced native woodlands of a mixture of oak, silver birch, hawthorn in these areas that I'm highlighting around here. There's additional woodland scrub created around here, and that's primarily to screen it from the public rights of way that we saw around here and here. Again, these are out for consultation with our ecologists and our public rights of way. If we look at heritage assets, there are two. There's a Grade 2 star listed barn. The barn is on the at-risk register, which means it's in a poor state of disrepair. We've also got the Grade 2 kilns that are located here. As you'll notice, Chair, Committee, both of these are outside the red outline, but there is a relationship that's been needs to be assessed. That has been assessed within the report, and it comes out that there is no adverse impact upon that. Again, we are liaising with our Conservation and Heritage Officer on those points. If we look at access, as I said, Chair Committee, the access will be along Pentra Lane and up the unadopted road. So this road's adopted, Pentra Lane. This is the access road that leads to the Pentra Farm, Pentra Park Farm, and there is the compound. And then obviously that leads into the wider development. The assessment is taken into account, as you can see, the tracking of the vehicles, which demonstrates that they can access and egress the site in a safe manner. Obviously, the other part of that is the visibility display, and this demonstrates that it meets the requirements of DB32. Again, these details are being currently assessed by our highways colleagues, who will inform us if they're acceptable or not. So this, Chair Committee, shows the noise as part of the solar farm. You have to have inverters, which is to convert the electricity so it can go into the network. And obviously there are 6 of these converters around the site, and they go in the rows. And obviously it's the humming noise that you hear as they're converting. So what the applicant has done is undertaken an appropriate assessment of noise in line with the British standard. And the yellow dots are those areas where they've had monitoring equipment. What you can see here is obviously when you're next to it, it's loud, and the further you go away, the further quieter they are. And the key point is around residential properties, it's within acceptable noise limits. Again, that document and this information is being assessed by the Council's Environmental Health Officer, and they will form part of the final report that is undertaken. Okay. So the other part, one of the other assessments that's been undertaken is a solar glare. So obviously the angle of the solar panels and the reflection of the sun off that. So there's 2 key points that members will be aware of. One is obviously the impact it has on the road, and obviously that's what this is assessed here, which is the primary road along there. And obviously the other one is residential impact, which is across the properties that are scattered along. And the report concludes that there is no adverse impact, and therefore there's no mitigation required. Again, Chair Committee, that report has been assessed by Environmental Health colleagues, who will help inform the local impact report. So I think it's important that, Chair Committee, that we consider the overview. As we know, we've had a number of developments of national significance within Kilvine County Borough. So this is just to put into context what we've had so far, and this is what one of the local impact assessment has to look at, which is the cumulative effect. So here's the solar farm that we're subject of this application is here. These are the wind farms of Rynydd Mine, Llanhilleth, and Abertillery. So that's the end of the presentation. Chair, one other point, if I just go back, is that as part of that, as we said at the beginning, that this is in the special landscape area. So there has been a landscape assessment that has looked at key vantage points around the area, including public rights of way. And that concludes that there's a moderate impact upon the visual area. Again, so that will be considered by the Council's Landscape Officer along with colleagues in policy. Members will be aware that as part of the replacement local development plan, we are also looking at areas that can sustain regeneration of sustainable energy. And this is one of the areas that is being looked at, and obviously that will form part of the report that goes into the local impact report. So that's the end of the presentation, Chair. As you say, it's work in progress, and happy to take any questions that I can answer at this time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Justin. I can see one hand up. Councillor Steve Evans, do you like to ask your question?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Well, I've got a couple of observations and questions. I'm concerned because there's a reduction in a lot of bird numbers, and with the solar panels there, that's going to have an adverse effect on flying birds. Also, up on page 13, there's ancient hedgerow. Now, when are we looking to do this work? Because that ancient hedgerow will have a lot of nesting birds in it. And it doesn't say much in there in the report about when it's going to be done, how it's going to be done, and what the impact will be on that. And on the final point, where you raise about noise for properties, what will the noise have an effect from the turbines on the noise in the wildlife? Because you've got to remember, wildlife, their hearing is absolutely astounding compared to somebody living in a house. So, is there anything you could sort of alleviate my concerns regarding them, please?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Evans, for your question. The solar farm, there is an accompanied ecological assessment that has looked at ornithology and has looked at other ecological assessments. And obviously that is with the council's ecologists to look at the moment. In terms of timings of when this development, if approved by the inspector, it will be done through conditions. Obviously, as Councillor Evans knows, all planning applications have a 5-year lifespan. This, as part of this solar farm chair committee, it's anticipated to last for 40 years. Obviously, as part of that, there obviously needs to be a decommissioning condition that will go along. And obviously, as they're building it, as members will be aware, with all major applications, there is a need for a camp, and there will obviously need for construction, a watching brief during construction. And as part of that, there's normally an ecological clerk of works that will do updated reports. But as you know, Councillor Evans, Chair Committee, that birds are protected under the Controlled Wildlife Act, and obviously during the bird nesting season, there is a moratorium on doing any developments and removing of hedgerows and the like, and obviously that will be forming part, if approved, as part of a camp condition to ensure that those compliance are met.
Thank you. Steve, you pleased with that answer?
Yeah, no, thanks for that. I understand that. It's in, but like I say, the report doesn't go into very in-depth. But no, thank you for answering that question. Thank you.
Right, thank you. There are two other hands up. The first one, Stuart Ashley, Councillor Stuart Ashley, and then Councillor Alan Slade. Stuart?
I think Alan was ahead of me, to be honest. You
Well,
weren't? Yeah.
if you want to go now, Alan, you have the chance.
He's nodding like, okay, I go, I don't mind. I mean, I was following on from what Steve was saying, the environmental policies, I've always wondered what that particular area, in terms of landscape directives, because it is the vagueness of that area, because we've been up there before. I think we looked into somebody up there with a speedway bike up round there. I know the area reasonably well, having gone up there, cycled up there, and also gone up there with some of the frogs. I mean, my concern is, and I mean, I'm vaguely, largely in favour of a development like this because I think they're less intrusive than wind turbines are. But what we are not given is how tall these solar collectors are. Because the last application we had, we were given the meterage of the height of the things and how wide apart they are, because some mitigation for nature underneath them or farming underneath them be given. Also, as Steve was pursuing, how they fit into the landscape. As it is, we're making observations. We're not determining this, but my concern always with this is how it fits into the landscape and how we can meet our obligations for global climate change and nature emergency. How it fits. I've noticed at the end our local observations are the ones I'm more concerned about, and how we go back to the inspector down the bay. Could you comfort me on all of this, please?
Justin, please.
Yeah, I'll give it a go, Councillor Ashley. So if we start with the first bit, which is the dimensions. So the lowest part of the frame will be 0.2 metres in height. The maximum height is 2.4 metres. The face of the solar panels, so that's the glassy bit, the shiny bit, has an area of about 3.3 metres. The gap between the rows varies between 2.4 to 6 metres. And the other point is they will go into the ground to a maximum depth of 1.5 metres. In terms of the fencing around the site, as I said earlier, Chair Committee, the maximum height is 2.5 metres. There is CCTV proposed within the site. Again, that would be on a pole of approximate height of 3 metres. In terms of the layout, it's an important point that you make, Councillor Ashley, and what the developers tried to do is that they have tried to use the existing framework of the hedgerows and the woodland as the buffer, and then the grass in between is where they're putting the solar panels. And this is important in terms visually, is that the historic makeup of those patchwork of grassed areas would primarily remain in terms of the hedgerows, and obviously there is areas where they're looking to reinforce that with trees and additional hedgerows. It is in the middle part, there is some hedgerow coming out, but it is minor overall. So what they've tried to do is recognise through the visual impact assessment is that this is undulating landform where there are a patchwork of green fields that are made up and binded by the hedgerows, and that's what they've tried to work with to ensure that hedgerow network around the area is retained. Now, how successful that is, we'll see what our landscape officer and our ecologists think. But obviously what they are trying to do is by increasing those areas of hedgerows and woodland, that they are trying to create and reinforce the ecological connectivity, which as members will know is that when we do that stepwise approach, is that we're not just looking within the site, but we're looking at how the site relates outwards, and so obviously it's making sure that those connectivities, ecological connectivities, work well, and that's what this applicant is trying to do. Again, as I said, right in an early stage of formulation and assessment of this application, which is why the report is brief in what it states, but obviously when we've had the consultation comments back from internal colleagues, then we can add more to it. Hopefully that allays the points or answers points that you've raised, Councillor.
Just a couple of quick ones back. I'll let Alan have the rest of this. Obviously the panels have to be south for as much as they can get them south, otherwise they won't work. Are there any bits of land overlooking them that you can see the shiny bits, as it were? That's the next bit I wanted to ask. And then the other bit was, I presume, 40 years worth of having that amount of land between between the rows of panels. I presume they're going to farm them and farm underneath them. There's enough land there for grass growing, and I assume that the thing is that the panels are farmed. Having seen them in other places, that you can graze sheep, cattle, that sort of thing underneath them.
They haven't been explicit over that, but as you quite rightly say, Councillor, there's no reason why they couldn't do that.
most of the ones I've seen elsewhere, like on the motorway going down Somerset, quite explicit ones there. They've got sheep under them normally, or cattle. But it's they do merge into the landscape if they're done properly, and obviously the aspect of them is south facing with the northeast north. I can't get it at the moment. East-west access. It's like a good greenhouse. You have to have it that way. So then ask the question about there is no way in which you can see off the mountain or hills round that you can see down onto that. You have explained that to us, that from what you're satisfied that it can't be overlooked from significant places. That's the worry I think we've all got.
Well, I think it's fair to say, Chair, that you will be able to see them from some points. The question is the degree of how that would look in the round when you look at the whole field network of that southern special landscape area. Now, the report that is submitted acknowledges that, putting solar panels in a field, you will see them from some point, and it says that is a moderate visual assessment. But I think it's also fair to say that whilst it is 40 years, they are not a permanent feature, and they can be removed. And as you said, Councillor, if you then have landscaping around, if you then have livestock around, that's such as sheep, that also adds to that natural environment. So you will see them, but the question is the degree of harm, and obviously the report that's been submitted by the developer is that it is moderate, and that's what we're currently assessing.
Thank you there.
Thank you. Councillor Slade?
Yes, my concerns are really surround the construction traffic. Presumably they're going to come up Newport Road and then turn into the Pentre Lane near the Blackbird's pub. Now, there's a big sign there that says that the lane is unsuitable for HGVs. But I've got concerns because it's really, really narrow down through there. There are no footways. In fact, there's been traffic calmed, so there are chicanes down through there as well, which make it really narrow. And my concerns around highway safety. Now, when they came out and did the pre-application consultation, I explained all this to them, and they said that they would provide a swept path analysis of that junction and through the top part of the lane right by the Blackbirds. But they patently haven't done that. I've looked through all the transport reports, and I think the highways people need to look at that very seriously, because I do think there's going to be a huge impact on safety down through there. They're not proposing any banksmen, which is disappointing. Like I say, all this was raised with the developer at the pre-application stage, the pre-application consultation, and they haven't addressed any of it, which is frankly quite disappointing. So there you are. That's my point.
Thank you, Councillor Slade, and that's an interesting point. And what I would say, and I say to all councillors as well, is that these points that you're making are valid, and you may want to also raise them with the inspector as well as councillors, and obviously Councillor Slade as ward councillor, you know the area better than most. But what I will say on traffic, and as Councillor Slade has alluded to, a traffic statement has been submitted, and that was dated January 2025. It states that the vehicle access to the site will be taken along Pentre Lane onto the existing private access, which all construction will utilise. The track is circa 118 metres long, with a minimum width of circa 4 metres, and is sufficiently wide enough to accommodate full-size articulated HGVs. Adequate visibility provision is provided based on results of the speed survey. I think the other points in terms of construction traffic, which is also what Councillor Slade has raised, the transport statement states, and I report verbatim, at the peak of construction there will be 42 vehicles to the site, and this represents the worst case for traffic impact. This equates to a total of 84 vehicle trips, which for a 5-day working week equates to 17 trips a day in an 8-hour period. The worst case scenario is that all vehicles would arrive and leave in the morning over a 4-hour period in the morning, 8 a.m. until 12 noon. This would equate to 8 to 9 vehicles arriving, or around 2 per hour, so that's 4 trips, which is considered negligible impact upon the local highway network. And then during the operational phase, if the application was approved, there will be less than 1 vehicle per month. So, but I think what that hasn't stated, and obviously colleagues in Highways will note the comments that Councillor Slade has made, is obviously that there are a little build-outs further along the road, where it creates a little chicane, and obviously how that's to be dealt with. But I think we'll see what Highways comments come back as, but I think, as I said, to reiterate, I think it would be good if all councillors can also make their points to the inspector as well. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I will be making my comments to the inspector, but like I say, they talked about the visibility at the sort of entrance to the site, and they can adjust that because it's their land, if you like. But what they can't do is change the junction at Newport Road, and that's a very tight junction. And I honestly struggle to see how articulated lorries can traverse that, and the very narrow part down past the Blackbirds. But
yeah,
you see.
Right, thank you, Alan. There's 2 more hands up. First is Councillor Stuart Ashley, and then Councillor Mark Jones.
Right. Well, this is personal knowledge on my part, and I don't know if Alan will support me on that as the local ward councillor. I went to a meeting with premises just below where this is proposed. Must be a few years back, about this time of year, and I've never seen so many frogs in somebody's in somebody's garden. It is a property on the left-hand side as you go up towards where this proposed thing is. There's a cottage there, and I don't know what the situation is now, but I would suspect we need to get the ecology. I don't see a report in here, and I was thinking about this. What Alan was saying about the road, that this particular land at the time, was about 10 years ago, supported an enormous number of amphibians. And I don't see a report in here about looking at amphibians on this land, or any of the fauna, as it were. And my worry about that, because obviously if you're getting, I know where they come from, and the conversation was had. I was meeting a soil association, funnily enough, and in this particular house, and they reckon that they come from the land and they come out of the canal. So it's an obvious spawning ground, and it's all the way up and down the Mononbreck, and obviously where they go is into the fields. So what I don't see is these fields would obviously be a place where the local frogs, toads, etc. live. So I don't see a report for that. I hesitate to say this, but obviously there needs to be a study into that, because they're all on the red list at the moment. I'll leave it there. I don't know what your answer is, sir, but I wonder about putting this amount of work into about creatures on the red list, which this council is dedicated. Have we had a report back about stuff on the nature emergency?
Right, thank you, Stuart. Can you comment on that, Justin?
I think the best I can say to that, Chair, is that the comment is duly noted, and we'll see what the council's ecologist says on that particular point.
It's the one location other than my own ward where I've seen that number of frogs. It was a while back, but because of the canal and the drainage to the various brooks around there, that's a phenomenal number. I suspect now it's not as good as it was because I know what nature emergency has done, but it would be worth looking at, because obviously I started piling and all the rest of it. That's bound to disturb creatures. Like, it's worth looking into.
Right, thank you, Stuart. Right, Councillor Mark Jones.
Hi, good morning. Just a concern is obviously it says a 40-year cycle. What happens after the 40 years? Do you think you just take everything away and it'll all be hunky-dory? Obviously, with so many panels and living in this part of Wales, we occasionally get a lot of rain, and obviously they run off the panels. So what kind of erosion does that do with the soil? Because obviously they're coming off different angles, they're coming straight down. And what contamination would that cause into the waterways? Because obviously the panels are going to be held with very heavy-duty metal frames. It's just something I didn't see in a report, and when is it relevant, please?
Right, thank you, Mark. Justin, can you comment?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. As part of the submission, you will note that there was a flood consequence assessment that was done, and as part of that flood consequence assessment also looked at surface water drainage. It promotes mitigation through a number of pools and ponds, and obviously, as you can imagine, with it being 46 hectares, it will obviously be subject to the statutory SAB requirements. And obviously, as members will know, as part of the principle, there are 6 key principles of SAB that you need to address. One of those is fundamentally that the water runoff should relate to that of a green field. And obviously the key point is that the water should stay within the site and then drain off, as I said, at green field runoff, which is relatively low. So they're comfortable that they can meet that SAB strategy. And obviously, as part of that SAB strategy and as part of the drainage strategy that they've submitted with this application, there are mitigations in terms of filtrations and so on to ensure that those pollutants, if there are any, are maintained. And in terms of the steel, obviously the frame will be designed to weather and deal with a 40-year cycle. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, Mark?
Yeah, thank you. But that's fine. But is there any proof of any contamination on site similar to this around, or is it just minimal?
Again, a ground contamination study has been done and there's been found to be no contaminants of any note. But again, Chair Committee, that report will be assessed by environmental health officers to see if they agree with those conclusions.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Niall, have the members in the chamber indicated they've got questions?
No, Chair.
Thank you. Mark, you've still got your hand up. Do you want another question? Or no? Okay.
Sorry, yeah.
No, it's okay. Just checking. Right. If there are no more questions or comments, I'll confirm the committee members have noted the report. And that's the end of the agenda for today. I'd like to thank everyone for your attendance and your contributions. And I'll now close the meeting.
Okay, thank you very much.